Welcome one and all to another edition of the D-Folk Show with Luby here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. Water Cleanup of Florida is here for you with any water, fire, flood issues. We've seen lots of rain lately here in the South Florida parts. No worries. Water Cleanup of Florida will make sure any issues you have go right away. Just call them 954-579-0356. 954-579-0356. Michael, Robert, George, their entire team has vastly over 60 years of experience, plus certified, insured, licensed contractors that will take whatever issues you have, get rid of them, and make them look brand new. Just call them 954-579-0356. Check them out on the website at WCUFL.com, WCUFL.com. Also at Water Cleanup FL on the socials, plus Google with over 80 5-star reviews. Water Cleanup of Florida will really make your life easier if you have any issues with your home or office. Believe me, if you got the schmutz, they have the guts. And those Miami Heat once again did have the guts, closing out the Milwaukee Bucks. Got down by up to 16 points last night, end of the third, into the fourth. Jimmy Butler, Bam running point pretty much, was facilitating the basketball. Their defense stood up as Bam took on Giannis. Got just enough help from the rest of the crew. And Jimmy Butler once again went over 40 points to close out the number one seeded, not only in the East, number one seeded in the NBA, Milwaukee Bucks. We talked with Sean Devaney, NBA reporter, analyst, writer for Heavy.com today on the Devo Show with Luby about the Miami Heat and the rest of the NBA playoff scene on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
One seed as they did it against the Chicago Bulls in 2012. We welcome to the program one of our favorite basketball analysts joins us here on the show now with Heavy.com, a longtime Sports Illustrated writer and generally respected as one of the great analysts in the game. Mr. Sean Devaney joins us here on the show. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Defoe. How are you?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I didn't drink enough embalming fluid last night to actually finish the job. Although, from a betting standpoint, we did suggest that that was a very generous allotment of points. And I saw somewhere last night on one of the crawls that the Bucks went off as 13-point favorites in this game against the Miami Heat. Now, nobody here in town anticipated anything but a Milwaukee victory in that game. And very similarly to what happened in Game 4, they seem to be breezing along. And just as we were throwing in the towel on the Heat's chances in both of those games, Jimmy Butler, again, becomes a superstar and carries the Heat to victory, including the sensational play to tie the game and send it into overtime. How impossible did it seem to you, A, that the Heat would win last night in Milwaukee, in a game where, as Luby's been pointing out, Giannis goes for 38 and 20, and Middleton, has like 30-plus points in the ball game. And if you had given, us that before the game as, okay, these two things will happen, you would have said, okay, annihilation Bucks.
Yeah,
but,
they can't hang.
I mean, some people are saying this is the biggest upset in like NBA history in terms of a series. So what do you think, Sean Devaney?
Certainly Milwaukee as a favorite in this series. When you look back at some of the other, you mentioned some of the 8-1 series that we've seen in the past. You had some inklings beforehand. I think of the Warriors beating the Mavs.
Yep.
Warriors were 4-0 against Dallas during the regular season. You could see that was a bad matchup. Yet you mentioned the Bulls and Sixers. That was Derrick Rose got hurt in Game 1 in that series. So there was some the one game the Bucks won was the one that Giannis didn't play at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is for a championship caliber team, a team that's won a championship, to lose a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter one night and then come back in the next game and lose a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter on their home floor. That is, that's as big as an upset as you're going to find. This is a really shocking result here.
I don't know if you caught any of the Mike Budenholzer post-game press conference, but he looked like he already had his fate sealed there. I mean, did they dump this guy after this series? He was made to look like a fool. I thought, in spite of the fact. I mean, sure, you can give him a little bit of leniency because Antetokounmpo was out for a couple of games, but still, he had him back in pretty good shape, and wasn't able to complete a victory in either Game 4 or Game 5.
Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the league. I think that's pretty widely accepted, if not, one of the top three for sure. But I think if you were to poll other coaches and such, he'd come out as the number one coach. And he's made other coaches look bad, but this was the talent level. Tyler Hero was to play. The talent level of these two teams was way off, and the chemistry level, everything was working toward the Bucks, and they couldn't get to a Game 6 here in the first. They couldn't get out of April, and that. I mean, this was So for Budenholzer, I mean, this was. They really looked like a dumb team. I mean, that's the only way. Just watching them, the turnovers, the bad shots, the inability to get into their offense, and some of it's luck, of course, when you get hot from the 3-point line. But if a team does it for 5 straight games, as Miami did, shooting 45%, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league during the regular season, shoot 45% from the 3-point line, then that. At some level, that falls on the coach. So this was not a fine performance from Mike Budenholzer, who does have a championship ring.
Yeah, he does. Look, and I'm here to hail the Heat, so I'm sure we'll talk plenty about the Heat and definitely the rest of the NBA playoffs. But it's just funny because normally the fan of the team that won hates when people say that other team lost. Even I can't really fight that last night. The other game, I think, the Bucks relaxed, but I also think Jimmy Butler and the Heat woke up at just the right time. Last night, looking at some of the replays, even there with a half a second left, you were coming off a made basket. You have a timeout. Mm-hmm. It's just automatic. You call it. You get to move it to half court. Even if you don't score, you have a shot at a Derek Fisher, or even you have Giannis, so you throw an alley. Like, he'd have no height. Or like Lopez was doing tips the whole friggin' series. Like, the fact that no one thought to do anything there, Budenholzer or the players, is freaking weird. Yeah. And then the last play of the game, Grayson Allen. Like, you have 3 dudes who are all-stars, 3 dudes who are all good ball handlers, 3 dudes who are really good at getting to or around the basket. And you had over 6 seconds. How does it get in Grayson Allen? Like, to me, they won that title, but every other year outside that year, Budenholzer's been questioned. Like, how can he not be gone at this point?
Yeah, and that goes back to Atlanta too. Don't forget that when he was in Atlanta, they had a reputation for being a 55, 60 win team that would flop in the playoffs. And certainly, he's gotten back there. I don't know how much juice that championship still holds, and that's probably going to be enough for him to stick around. But 2 things. One is he'd be on a short leash. I think that's for sure. The other is if Giannis were to go to ownership and say we need somebody new, then you can be sure that there'd be somebody new. So one of those 2 things is probably what's next there.
Sean Devaney with us, Heavy.com, basketball analyst, longtime NBA writer and analyst with us here on the show. All right. It's not the same. We know this. And mostly because the Knicks became irrelevant for many, many years and we're no longer contenders. The last time the 2 teams met was in 2012. We do remember 97 through 2000. They met in 4 consecutive years in the postseason. Legendary stuff. What's startling, Sean Devaney, is that when you think about the Heat and the Knicks, that Allen Houston game, and I was looking at the scores in that series, that this might have been the highest scoring game, 78-77 was the final there. I mean, think about this. I mean, I know we went overtime, but they had 236 points in regulation.
Yes.
Here's a game that had 155 points. I mean, how different is the NBA today? What could account for that kind of differential in terms of scoring?
Oh yeah, what's funny is that it was Pat Riley, the Knicks, the Heat, all that stuff that really drove the league to try to boost scoring. And you could argue that it's gone too far. That what we've seen in terms of the ability to get to the rim and get easy layups and the ability to spread the floor and make 3-pointers, that maybe that's gone too far. But the only reason that that's happened, that goes back directly to those Pat Riley teams, the Knicks in the '90s and later the Heat. So what you're seeing in the league now, it's been a slow evolution, but you could trace it right back to what happened in the '90s between these two franchises.
Well, and it wasn't uncommon to frisk a player before the game and find a foreign object in his trunks. I mean, they really went after it, and there was a lot more physicality, I guess. Not that the game isn't physical today, but I guess in terms of confining defense, they certainly let a lot more go than they do at this point. All right, how do you size up that series? I mean, I know it was just made last night. I don't know if you had time to think about it, but. With what you know of the Knicks and the way they played this season, I was sort of surprised to see them easily handle the Cavaliers in that series. I don't know, what the breakdown was for the Cavs, but it seemed like they had an answer for Donovan Mitchell, and and a lot of Knick players rose to the occasion, including enhancing, much like Jimmy Butler did, his playoff image. Jalen Brunson, what was great in this series. How do you size up Knicks and Heat in 2023?
Yeah, really the Knicks, they probably played as much like a '90s Knicks team as any has in the last 20 years. Where they really did play great defense and they played smart defense. They handled Donovan Mitchell well with double teams and sending different looks at him. Giving him a lot to handle and really did throw him off. The Knicks were not great offensively in that series. They shot 43%, 28% from the three-point line, but they really did it on the defensive end. They did it with rebounding. That could be an issue for Miami for sure. And they did it with depth. And again, that could be an issue for Miami as well. When you could pull off, a guy like Emmanuel Quickly off your bench who was just fantastic, really, the second half of the year. Obi Toppin, Isaiah Hartenstein, they've had a really, really good bench, and that's going to be a problem for Miami that, they don't have the depth. So the way the Knicks defended in the first round would be a problem for the Heat, and I think the depth is the other main issue. Can they get enough offense? Is Jimmy Butler going to be enough? And then, what happens when you get into that second unit? That's going to be a real problem for Miami.
At first glance, when I first saw him out on the court, Hartenstein, I had him on my all big white stiff team, but, he's actually pretty functional. He's in there. He grabs a lot of rebounds and seems to understand, that he's going to play a limited role on offense. He was a functional player for him. All right, a series still going on in the East where we know Philadelphia is going to be the opponent for whoever evolves from Boston and Atlanta. And surprisingly, Atlanta is still alive. I mean, as surprising as the Heat winning last night in Milwaukee,
what the hell?
If not more so, was Atlanta's victory to stave off elimination. I guess it begs the magic question, since he was also present at the Bruins-Panthers game, which went against Boston the other night.
Yeah.
Is Bob Kraft a jinx along the lines of Rachel Nichols in terms of whoever subjects himself to an interview for Rachel Nichols usually ends up on the injured list or maybe is out of basketball altogether in a short period of time? Is Kraft possibly a jinx? Because, that seemed impossible to think that the Hawks would go into Boston and win that game.
Yeah, and Kraft was sitting there with the owners right at courtside, but he will not be in Atlanta. I can confirm that. So at least the Celtics have that going for them. But it was a similar game to what we saw with Milwaukee the last two, and that is Boston had that game pretty well handled, and they're up 13 or so, and there was one turnover that they committed when they were up 13. They had a chance to get push that lead to 15 and probably put things out of reach, and then they had a turnover about 8 minutes left. And Atlanta got a fast break the other way, and things just unraveled from there. And that's the big concern with the Celtics is very often their worst enemy is themselves, and they get into this idea that Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I've got to try to win this game myself, and that just doesn't work. So, it's been 2 years really that they've been dealing with that issue. Closing out games. And guys trying to win games by themselves and forcing themselves into turnovers, bad decisions, and all that. This is something that's been of a pattern for the Celtics. So it's certainly it's a concern for Joe Mazzulla and that team because, like I said, this isn't the first time that they've done this sort of thing.
What do you do with Trey Young? Because look, in eras past, efficiency wasn't like Jordan was always efficient. Like Jordan took a lot of shots, he would just get to the line a lot. He'd get his 30 plus, and no one really worried about that. He missed 20. Like Iverson is historically known for inefficiency, and people at the time didn't slam him for it. He was considered a hero for carrying a Sixers team to a 5-game series against a three-peating Los Angeles Lakers team. So, but in this era, inefficiency is a big deal. Trey Young puts up a lot of points, makes that amazing shot, and then you still see he shot 40%. Like, as a guard, as a ball-handling guard, I look at him, I'm like, dang, like, the guy's, he's a talent, but where do you put him? Because he's so inefficient in an era that lives for efficiency. It sort of boggles my mind where we place him.
Yeah, and that's something that Atlanta is struggling with. What do you do with him going forward? I mean, they tried to add DeJounte Murray, thinking that a defensive guard who can take some pressure off the ball handling is what they could use, and to an extent that helps, but you wind up with the same thing. It is a lot like Iverson, where with the year that they had when they went to the finals, they pretty much built that team around Iverson. You had a lot of role players, defensive guys, Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, Mutombo. They made the trade for Matt Geiger. They made the trade for Mutombo in that year. So, I mean, they had a lot of those kind of defensive guys who, were basically there just to support Allen Iverson. And it's hard to build a team that way. You're right. It's hard to build a team that way in this era. But it's almost like if you're going to have Trey Young, that's what you got to be able to do.
It wasn't necessarily surprising to see Denver handle Minnesota. A couple of the games were contentious, but and I guess it got that way too when after the series when Karl Anthony Towns went Bobby Knight and like threw a chair at somebody. And the frustration was there. You could see it with Minnesota, and they may have had reason to bitch. Especially the way the late games were being officiated. For my money, someone in Denver's favor. But we expected Denver to be there. What we didn't expect is the Suns to struggle with a completely depleted Clippers team playing essentially without their two best players by far, in Leonard and George. We saw what Leonard was capable of doing. He's kind of Jimmy Butler-esque in the postseason as well. As good as he is in the regular season, he's even better when the playoffs come around. But did the Suns impress you enough to make you think that they will knock off Denver? Because it was underwhelming what they were doing in those games, even in beating the Clippers 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, but you've got to remember that what Phoenix is trying to do is pull together a team that's played 8 games together, and they're trying to do it in the playoffs. So they're really in just survive and advance kind of mode, and as long as they can do that, as long as they can win some games and keep moving forward, then they're going to rely on the brilliance of Kevin Durant and the attention he gets defensively. What that opens up for Devin Booker, especially. We saw how good he was, and it's not going to be pretty, but they're going to try to just rely on talent, and that's what they've got to do. But they haven't had any time together, and so because of that, they're going to be in that position going forward, and that's not going to change. So it's just survive and advance. If you're Phoenix, you're going to have to take some punches, and you're going to have to rely on pretty much Kevin Durant and how far he can carry you, how much attention he can get, and what your supporting cast can do around him. Because once you get past him, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, it is very, very thin with Phoenix. So it's going to come down
Why did Monty Williams sour on Deandre Ayton? It seemed like the whole organization was down on him at the end of last year. I even recall him being on the bench in key
In
spots.
playoffs, yeah.
And, every time I watch him, he looks like a major catalyst for anything good that's happening for the Suns, especially now, as you said, when they've thinned out the roster to accommodate the acquisition of Durant.
Yeah, it's usually defense. That's usually what gets on Monty's nerves with DeAndre. A lot of times it is matchups as well. We'll see what happens as they move forward here. But yeah, a lot of times it's going to be matchup related. But the thing that will get DeAndre sent to the bench is usually defense. That's been since Ayton's come into the league. That's been the biggest knock on him, and it's well earned. I mean, he just hasn't gotten better with that.
I mean, okay, I'll ask it. I didn't care if before I asked. I'm just curious. What do you do with do you feel the Warriors have found their legs finally? They couldn't win road games. They blew the first 2 games. They've now won the last 3 in a row, including last night, which was a thriller. If the Heat don't beat the Bucks, that's the game everyone's talking about. Are we now back to where people were going into this postseason, where the Warriors look like, if not the team to beat, right there as a team to beat?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly the way they've looked at it all along is, look, we've got to be able to go in and win one road game. And then we've got home court advantage, against every foe. And really, if the Lakers finish off and the Warriors, then they'll have the home advantage in the next round. So that's been the Warriors is that we're capable, as bad as they were on the road during the regular season. They've felt all along like we can go on the road and win a game. We've done this sort of thing before, and I think you saw that last night.
Good stuff all the way through. Sean, we always thank you for being with us here on the program. Very exciting first round. A very exciting first round so far. And,
last night was a great night, I thought, for the NBA for sure.
Yeah, ultimate surprise there with the Heat coming out on top in 5 games over the Milwaukee Bucks, team that almost everybody, I guess about 50% of the media had penciled in for championship, at least being in the final round and possibly winning it all. Heavy.com is where you find his work. We thank you so much, Sean Devaney, for being with us as always on the show. Thanks. All right, that was Sean Devaney, ladies and gentlemen.
Always enjoy our conversation with Sean Devaney. He not only writes about the NBA at large, but he does a lot. If you notice, you'll see a lot of reports about the Heat involving Sean Devaney. Well, that was him. I enjoy talking to him. He knows the league very well, and we have a really good time talking to him. We've talked to him for years, and it's cool to catch up about the Miami Heat because he's a national perspective, but he's very honest about the Heat. Yes, it was a shock. It was surprising, but with Jimmy Butler, you never know, and the dude has done it this entire playoffs. He's done his entire career in the playoffs, and he's really taken it to another level in his time with the Heat, so he's embodied the Heat culture to a T. South Florida has fallen in love with him, and he seems to have fallen in love with South Florida. Great win last night for the Miami Heat. They now move on to take the I guess they were once the arch rival New York Knicks. We really don't care about them lately because they've been horrendous for 20 years. But look, the Knicks got there in 5 games over the Cavs. They dispatched the Cavs. They will have home court advantage. So you never know what the next series will hold. I'm hoping the national media writes off the Heat like they did versus the Bucks. Look, the local fans did too. I thought it'd be a 4 to 5 game series. I thought I'd rather the Heat not. I wasn't rooting for them to tank because they're not going to tank, but I figured they'd lose to the Bulls once it got to the Bulls game. And if that happened, they'd have a top 14 pick. They beat the Bulls late in a tough fight and have now beaten the Bucks without Tyler Hero for the majority of a 5 game series. Who knows what the heck the rest of the playoffs have in store for the Miami Heat, but really excited. We also talked this morning on D4 on 5. You can check right here about the Florida Panthers as they got a big win last night, extend their series to 6 games versus the Boston Bruins, heading back to South Florida. The NBA playoffs, Warriors now lead over the Kings 3-2. The Suns lead over the Clippers. You've had the Nuggets and the T-Wolves series. The Grizzlies did win last night, making that a 3-2 series, heading back to Los Angeles as the Lakers try to close that series out. And like I said, the Knicks have moved on against the Cavs, and the Warriors are now, again, leading the Kings 3-2. We'll talk so much more about the NBA playoffs, so much more about the Miami Heat tomorrow morning on the Defo Show with Luby. Check us out 7 to 9 live on South Florida Live. Check us out on our national podcast, the Believe Network, BLEAV.com, search After Hours. And our South Florida content right here. Oh, first of all, every morning right here, Defo on 5 with myself. We'll talk a lot about the Miami Heat, the NBA playoffs as well. And here, our South Florida content, the Defo Show with Luby on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.